All right, thanks a lot everyone for joining us at 10 p.m. Malaysian time and 6 a.m. for our guest Chris. Thanks for taking your time, everyone. This is our first meetup for 2022. We are exploring the Ethereum multiverse with Chris from Hop Protocol. Our sponsor is Etherscan, and a note from the sponsor: if anyone in Malaysia who's interested to join the blockchain space, there is a local company, Etherscan, that's looking to hire for a lot of different positions. So feel free to reach out to the organizers afterwards. And before we start with the full agenda with Chris, we will get Asfar to do some monthly roundup of news around Ethereum and blockchains. Asfar?
Hello. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So hi guys. Thanks for coming for this meetup. So a few roundup on the global scene. So Consensus, which is a very big company that has like a big footprint in the crypto space, announced that they are launching Consensus rollups, and they are partnering with Mastercard. So and I think it's interesting to see that they are also playing like a big part in onboarding enterprises, and this rollup will be based on ZK rollup or zero knowledge. So it will be quite interesting to see that they have chosen the ZK path for rollup instead of optimistic rollup. So yep, there's a link here if you guys want to take a look at it. And the next is, so actually I just found out about this Twitter account. So SAP joins Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. These are sponsors, and so this community, as you can see here, is a member-led industry organization whose objective is to drive the use of Ethereum as an open standard to empower all enterprises. So it's a very enterprise-focused community, and for a company that as big as SAP, I'm not sure what department approved this sponsorship, but it is quite. I'm sure it is quite like a big approval that is required for SAP to sponsor anything crypto related, and I think this is quite interesting. But this is my first time hearing about this Enterprise Ethereum Alliance here. Right, and so next, so this one actually I would like to pass to Harif. So there's this a new article that comes out about alternative proposal for Ethereum sharding design, and maybe Harif, maybe you can share a bit about this particular article.
Not very technical myself, but from what I can gather, the new proposal for sharding, which is much further down the road from the merge and other things, is kind of, it helps rollups integrate with the Ethereum main chain better. There are some drawbacks though, where designing it this way means that the validators who are proposing blocks would have to have a lot more, would require a lot more resources and bandwidth. So it would be more centralized. But if anyone who's followed the whole like Ethereum roadmap and endgame kind of stuff, you'd have heard that with the whole MEV that's happening and growing, it's basically going to happen anyway, where mining or validating blocks would be more centralized going forward. So instead of trying to fight or resist that, you can design the sharding for the blockchain in a way that kind of just takes advantage of how it's done.
Yep, thank you, Harif. So next is, so if there are any developers here or anyone that are curious to try out testnet for Ethereum post-merge, so the Kintsugi testnet is live, and I haven't tried myself, but the goal is for developers and anyone interested to try out and to familiarize themselves with Ethereum post-merge, they can do so with the link here. And it's a testnet, and I think they're still on testing. Did I miss anything, Harry, for this particular one?
No, I just said that you never know, you might get an airdrop for using this.
Okay. Yep. And so some local news. So last week there was a really big flood that hit Malaysia, specifically around Petaling area, and now the flood, which I believe has found its way to Johor. So praise for our friends there. And one of the news during those times were a lot of NFT communities kind of stood up together and raised funds for these flood victims, and they raised around 80,000 Malaysian ringgit, which is around 20,000 US dollars. And I'm pretty sure it's small. It's hard for me to find the exact number. But the community did a very good job in tracking all of the expenses when it went off chain, because everything can be seen through the block explorer, and this is has really put the NFT community in Malaysia in a good light, and they've actually been covered by some of the local news outlets and also politicians. And they raised this fund using Tezos and also BNB. And next is so Volkswagen partners. So this is Volkswagen Malaysia, I believe they partners with Filament, a media group or like a media collective here in Malaysia to launch their own NFT collection. They haven't yet to launch, and yep, so there are a lot of projects launching with NFTs, and it's quite, and I'm quite surprised to see a big brand such as Volkswagen Malaysia would choose this path as well. And I'm not sure whether this is local news or not, but Samsung is adding NFT support to smart TVs. So if any of you have a Samsung smart TV, and then maybe sometimes in the future or this year, then you might see like an application to explore and maybe to buy and even sell NFTs in their own application. So yep, I think that's all I have. Back to you, Arif.
Right. Thanks, Asma. Oh, and I think we forgot to put actually. So for those of you who've followed like CoinGecko's guides, they just released how to NFT. And I think for those who joined their GeckoCon the other day, you get a 50% discount. If anyone wants, I can give my 50% discount to buy. So yeah, if anyone's free, you can learn about NFTs and at the same time support a local team. So yeah, thanks for that, Asfar. And I think we have Chak. Okay, so Chak just reconnected. Let me see if his audio works fine. Hey, Chak, are you able to speak?
Hey. Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, very clear, actually.
Oh, great. Okay. Is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
I'm so sorry. I just disconnected just before. Okay, first of all, so sorry guys, but I'm actually in Sabah right now and the reception's here not so good. So I'm gonna leave my audio off for now. So I'm here to tell you guys about the MyMP project. Let me just share my screen and hope that works. Let's see. Coba. Okay. Here we go. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm actually on the wrong tab. Give me 1 second. Okay, so essentially, first of all, thanks to everyone for attending, and also thanks to Harif for inviting me to speak. And huge apologies for not making it for the previous one, where I actually was supposed to attend. So basically, MyMP is a project that I launched last year to monitor MPs. And basically what we're trying to gamify political observation. So by gamifying it, we hope to make it fun. By making it fun, we hope to get more people looking at politicians. And by more people looking at politicians, we hope that politicians will be a little bit more careful about what they say and do. Okay, so how does this work on the website? Basically, as you can see, we've rendered all 220 MPs as 8-bit characters. So let's just click on Mukriz here. So to make it easier for people to actually see how their MPs are working, we actually have stat bars. So you have availability atau hubungan, which shows you how contactable they are. We have kesetiaan, which is loyalty, how many parties they've changed, how many constituencies they've changed, how many alliances they've changed. We have work ethic, etika kerja. This is like how often they attend parliament, how many questions they ask. So if you click on this, you can actually see what questions they asked when in parliament. Okay. Ketulusan is transparency. Win rate is basically how often they win and by what margin they win. So if you vote for someone, hopefully you vote for someone who has a chance of winning at the very least. Okay, down here you see like badges and stuff like that. So this is like the SOP before. There's a link there as well. So this is basically how the site works. It's very transparent. All our changes are logged on the right, as you can see here. So this is all the changes that we've made to someone, and usually they're attributed to either the admin or to a volunteer. So all this information is keyed in by volunteers over the MCO. Now, you're probably asking, why am I presenting in ETHKL? It's because ever since we launched it in August, right, everyone's been saying, I want to buy this NFT, I want to buy this NFT. And we didn't have any NFT program at that point in time. But since then, we've actually signed to date 7 MPs to officially launch their NFTs. So we've got 2 up on the site already, which is on OpenSea. So you can see them here. Maria Chin and Ong Keming are up. They're not for sale yet. I'll explain a little bit about that later. But why am I doing NFTs? So essentially what we want to do is we actually want to raise funding to develop more gamification of political observation. Some of the plans we have, the immediate one is Fantasy Parliament. So if you guys have ever played fantasy football before, you assemble a team based on a budget. This one, you have a budget of votes, you assemble some politicians, and you hope that they perform well in real life. We'll track them during parliament sittings, we'll track when they break SOPs, we'll track when they're under investigation, and your team will go up and down in value accordingly. Okay, so why do we want to do this? Because imagine like an MP does something wrong, you go like, this was lousy lah, and then you forget about it 3 days later. But if that MP causes your team score to go down, you're going to be like, oi, it's going to be a little more personal, the outrage. So that is one of the plans we have. We also have a rhythm game plan where they jump over obstacles. If they're very transparent, they can phase through things. Very, very early talks. We haven't started developing any of these yet, but what we're looking for is actually funding to develop this. So that's why we're going to launch a campaign as soon as we reach 10 MPs, which is called Now Everyone Can Buy an MP. Okay, it's a bit controversial, which is why we actually need permission from the MPs to actually sell their NFTs first, which we are trying very hard to actually get 10, maybe even 20 if we're lucky. We're currently speaking to Fahmi Fazil about getting more PH MPs in, and he's actually very keen. It's just that MPs are very, very hard to lock down. Okay, so that's basically the project. Do you guys have any questions about this or comments?
I think so. Chicha is asking how to buy.
How to buy? Okay, when we launch, it'll be available on OpenSea. So because we can't set a price for MPs. Like you can't say Mahathir is more expensive than Kyrie or whatever. We're doing an English auction. So basically, we'll start with a floor price of I think it's 0.01 or 0.1. I think it's 0.01 ETH, and then we'll see how high it goes after that. And then we're also trying to work with the MPs to see whether or not they be game. If it can reach 1 ETH, they will do something. Like for instance, you can throw a pie in Ong Keming's face or something like that. We're actually trying to talk to them to get those kind of permissions running lah. Was that your idea? I believe it was Harith, or was it somebody in the ETH group actually recommended this, and I was like, I spoke to Ong Keming about it, and he said, yeah, it sounds like fun. So it might actually happen. Yeah.
Alex is asking, can one MP have many owners?
No. So for the first batch, okay, so the long-term plan for this is basically we launch a collection every time there's an election. Okay, so GE15 is coming about, then we'll redraw all the avatars to match whoever wins in GE15. But for the first batch, for GE14, which is the current batch that you're seeing, there will only be 1 owner for every MP. Actually, yeah, I want to ask you guys, do you think it's actually more appealing if there's 1 owner or if there's several owners? What do you guys think?
I think we can do a poll later as well.
1, yeah, okay, some people are saying 1, yeah. need to summon the degens. Okay, I'm seeing the chat now.
Okay. Just take note that maybe, you know, maybe some of the people that are replying you are the ones who have a bit more ether, so you know they might not be the most representative.
Woohoo! We got somebody else here. Nice. So the Discord channel is just been set up. It's pretty empty at the moment. We're going to reach 10 MPs and then we're going to actually announce it on media and everything. But if you guys want, you can go in there and start having some fun. We already set up some channels, so feel free to go inside. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. I ask you guys for your support, not necessarily monetarily, but if you guys like want to help us develop this product even more, we would love to hear what you guys think. Just so you guys know my personal history, I'm not doing this to buy a Ferrari, okay? All income will be transparently logged, and it will, Lambo and no, I don't have a Prius, bro. So yeah, it's basically all going to development of MyMP and also hiring, because basically for the last 1 year, we developed this entire project on a budget of about 46,000 ringgit that we got from a grant. That includes all the designs and everything. So we're actually, when you guys buy these NFTs eventually, 10% will go back to the constituency of the MP. Another 10% will go to the artwork guy and the guys who are helping us to develop our NFT project. And the rest goes to development of MyMP, and it will all be documented. Okay. Hey, Discord link's not working.
Yeah, so you might wanna, you can I think you might have set the expiry, or by default I think it's 7 days. So yeah, you might.
Oh, the invite link. Okay. Sorry. I will send it in the East KL group once I get an updated link. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No
Yeah.
worries.
Any other questions about this? If not, then I guess we can finish this.
Yeah, I think we'll just go one last question. I think Yeezy asked, will the sales be used to donate to their political funding?
Okay, so essentially what we're doing with the MPs is they all have a constituency fund of some sort. Some of them are private personal accounts, but what we're going to do is be very transparent about it. So it will be on the website, whichever bank account that money is going to, but it will be 10%. Yeah, so if it goes to the personal account, you will be able to see which MPs are being donated to the personal account, and you can hold them accountable for that 10%. Yeah, the reason why we gave them 10% is because we want to work with the MPs, not against them. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, thank you for sending OpenSea link as well, Junbi. Very much. Yeah, thanks so much. Okay, if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me on the EastKL Telegram. Thanks for your time, Harris.
No worries. Thanks, Chak, for dialing in from Sabah, and enjoy the islands.
I will. I'll stick around. So I'll stop sharing for my screen now.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chak. And thank you so much for waiting, Chris. We know it's super early in your time. Yeah, so I'll just welcome you up to give a sharing about Hop Protocol. Oh, I think I need to
There we go. Hey guys, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. So my name's Chris Winfrey. I'm one of the co-founders of Hop Protocol. Before that, I was doing some auditing and building a contract-based account wallet called Authereum. And even before that, I started the Ethereum meetup in Boston. So, you know, I now live in LA, and we don't really have like a local meetup going, but you know, it's great to see you guys are keeping that local meetup spirit alive through COVID and everything. So I'm here today to talk about Hop Protocol. So I'll get into kind of how Hop Protocol works and yeah, how you can kind of send assets across different rollups on Ethereum. You know, with Ethereum, you know, we've explored a lot of different scaling solutions. So, you know, state channels were very popular, Plasma was very popular, and we kind of settled on rollups as being the closest scaling solution to the base layer Ethereum, because they are fully EVM compatible. So we can deploy all the applications that we know and love on Ethereum directly onto rollups and have a much cheaper environment to execute our transactions. And so, yeah, so rollups can be EVM compatible. And basically a rollup is a scaling solution that embeds its state root into layer 1 Ethereum. So it's a contract on Ethereum. The state root gets updated, and there's multiple different kinds of rollups, both the ZK rollups and optimistic rollups. And the only difference between the two is basically how they update that state root. So with an optimistic rollup, it's going to go through a kind of challenge game to kind of set the new state root. And with the ZK rollup, it's going to use some cryptographic magic to just prove that the next state update is the proper one. First, let's talk about how rollups interact with layer 1. So what we want is not just like this scalable environment to interact with, but we also want to move our layer 1 assets onto the rollup and be able to use them there. And so the way this works is with what's called a cross-domain messenger, and this allows for layer 1 contracts to talk to and send messages to layer 2 contracts, but also for layer 2 contracts to send messages to layer 1 contracts. So you can see here we have our sender contract on the bottom. It sends a message to the messenger, and then the messenger propagates it up to layer 2 and calls message on the recipient contract. And so this happens pretty fast. It happens in about the time it takes for layer 1 to reach finality. So it's about 5 to 10 minutes for your message to go from layer 1 to layer 2. And then you can send a message from layer 2 to layer 1. So it's very similar. You can see the message starts on layer 2, goes through the messenger, and then gets called on the recipient contract on layer 1. And the caveat here is that layer 2 to layer 1 messaging for optimistic rollups takes a full week. So any information that's coming out of the optimistic rollup, in order to verify it on layer 1, we can't do that for a full week until the whole challenge game has played out. So this is a pretty slow process to send messages from layer 2 to layer 1. And so the first application that these rollups kind of build on top of their cross-domain messenger is their native token bridge. And so this is basically a contract where you deposit your layer 1 assets, they get locked on layer 1, and then the rollup will mint you a representation of these assets on layer 2. So it's not actually the assets moving to layer 2, they're just minting these representations. And this will kind of be important later when we get into the mechanics of HOP. So you can see here that user deposits DAI, that triggers this mint function that gets propagated up to layer 2, mint gets called on the layer 2 bridge, and then this representation of DAI gets distributed back to the user on layer 2. And then same thing for when you're exiting a rollup. You can see that the representation of DAI gets burned on layer 2, that triggers this release message. But then this release message doesn't reach layer 1 for a full week. So that's kind of why we have this full week exit time for the native rollup bridge. And so this kind of presents a big usability problem where users want their funds immediately, but they have to wait a full week to get them out of layer 2. And so that's where fast exit bridges come in. So HOP protocol acts as a fast exit bridge, but we also allow you to send assets directly from one rollup to the next rollup without even having to touch layer 1. And so at the core, HOP is a scalable messaging protocol for scaling solutions. So what does that mean? And so, at the core, we want to send a message from rollup A to rollup B. And the way that HOP does this is that we aggregate many messages. So you can imagine the naive approach here is just to send a message using the cross-domain messenger from rollup A down to layer 1. And then once it reaches layer 1, then we propagate it up to rollup B. And what this does is it creates this big bottleneck in layer 1 because each message is individually going through layer 1. And so to alleviate that bottleneck with HOP, what we do is we aggregate all of these messages on rollup A, And then we move, we turn that into a Merkle tree and just take that Merkle root and move that through layer 1. And that's just a single hash that represents, thousands of messages. And that kind of alleviates this layer 1 bottleneck. So now we can kind of move messages through layer 1 but without creating a layer 1 bottleneck, and then unpack this Merkle tree at the destination and relay all of our messages. So that's kind of how Hop creates this scalable roll-up-to-roll-up messaging layer. It is slow because you still have to wait for the exit time of the origin rollup, but it's very scalable because we don't have to pay a layer 1 transaction fee for every single message going through the bridge. That layer 1 transaction fee can be aggregated over all of these messages. And so just like the rollups kind of build their native token bridge on top of their cross-domain messenger as kind of the first application, the first thing that we built on top of this cross-scaling solution messaging layer is a cross-scaling solution token bridge. So this allows you to send tokens directly from one rollup to the next. And so this kind of next layer, we have our own representation of each layer 1 asset. So, just like we talked about with the native token bridge, having basically taking DAI and locking it in layer 1, and then having a representation of DAI being minted. Hop protocol also, when you deposit assets into the layer 1 Hop bridge contract, we will mint you our own representation of that asset. So we call these representations H tokens. So if you deposit, say, ETH into the layer 1 Hop bridge contract, you get HETH on layer 2. And then users don't really want HETH, so we'll talk about how we interact with what we call like the canonical assets. That would be like actual ETH on the rollup or actual USDC. But first, let's talk about how HETH can be moved from one rollup to the next. So HETH can be burned on one rollup and then minted on the next rollup with this role called the bonder. That's basically this liquidity provider. So first, the bonder will make a deposit at all the destinations that it wants to support, and it kind of has this collateral ready to be used. And so Alice is a bridge user. She burns for HETH and says that she wants it sent to rollup B. And the bonder sees that Alice has done this and will call the destination Hop bridge contract and mint that HETH for Alice and take a small fee. So you can see that 4 ETH was burned and she received 3.99. And so after the bonder does this many times, then each of these HETH that's burned creates a message, and we aggregate all of those messages and then propagate those through layer 1 using the messaging layer we just spoke about to the destination. And now the bonder can kind of prove that each HETH that was burned at the source, each HETH that was minted at the destination had a corresponding burn at the source. And now the bonder's collateral can be freed up because you can see that we haven't created new HETH. It's just been burned at the source and minted at the destination, and it no longer needs to be collateralized. So that's how we can transport HETH directly from one rollup to the next in a fast and scalable way, because the bonder can basically do this immediately. And then lastly, we deploy AMMs. And so this is how users get into and out of the H tokens. And so for an end user, what will actually happen under the hood is they will start with some asset, say ETH or USDC. They will swap that ETH into HETH. HETH gets burned at the source. The bonder comes in, mints HETH at the destination, which immediately gets swapped out back into ETH for the user and put in the user's wallet. So this all happens with just a single transaction from the user at the source, and then the bonder will complete the transfer at the destination with another single transaction. So sending from one rollup to the next takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we kind of abstract all this complexity under the hood into a Uniswap-like interface, so the user can just kind of see if I want to send 5 USDC from Optimism to XDAI, then I get this price and can basically send it in a single transaction. And they don't have to think about USDC or how kind of these underlying mechanics work at all. And that's it. You can try it out at hop.exchange. You follow us on Twitter, join our Discord, and yeah, get involved in the community. Yeah, any questions?
Right. Thanks, Chris. So there are a couple of questions already in the chat. If anyone wants to ask more, you can feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask verbally. But as always, before we get into that meat of those questions, I always like to start with asking our guest, Chris, in this case, can you expand a little bit more about your personal story? You mentioned, you were running a meetup in Boston beforehand, but like kind of how you got your feet into the whole crazy Ethereum Web3 space, just so we get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah. So I was living in Michigan actually when I first learned about Bitcoin, and just ended up living with some people that were really passionate about it. And they got me interested, and we started like looking at different things that we could build on Bitcoin, like land registries and all these like non-money use cases. And it was really hard to build on Bitcoin, and so Ethereum kind of came out, and that was really exciting for us, because we could actually build applications with Ethereum. It is completely programmable, and so that's kind of like how that was like my first introduction to blockchain. So I got really excited about Ethereum, started kind of doing the tutorials online, and chatting it in the Solidity Gitter to kind of learn the ropes when there wasn't much documentation. And at some point I moved out to Boston and was looking for cryptocurrency jobs, but ended up kind of doing iOS development with some folks that used to work at Circle, that ended up producing USDC. And so they had kind of spun out and were doing their own iOS dev shop, and I was working with them. But Ethereum was really exciting for me, and I really wanted to work doing Ethereum stuff, but there wasn't really any jobs in Boston at the time. So I quit the agency and started the Boston Ethereum developer meetup. And then with a few friends, we started an Ethereum dev shop where we would build smart contracts for different people, and ended up working with some great companies. Then we started auditing as well. So we did a few audits for some people that asked us, and we were very like hesitant, that we were like, hey, we're not really auditors, like we don't do this, and they said, it's fine, like you guys will do fine, and they ended up really liking the work. And so we went on to audit the Open Zeppelin framework, and then work with projects like Augur and DYDX and Decentraland, Trust Token, and a handful of others, and got to know that the code base really well, found issues, and so at some point I moved out to Los Angeles, and was working with the auditing team out here, but we really wanted to build product. Auditing is it's a good business, but it's not very scalable, and so we kind of spun the auditing business out and started started Authereum, which is this kind of contract-based account that made it easy to onboard to Ethereum. So you could just sign up with the username and password. You could pay your transaction fees in any token. We had batch transactions, so you didn't have to do an approval for every transaction. But then the gas market got really expensive, and we were deploying this contract-based account for users. It cost about 13 cents when we started. Gas market got crazy expensive through DeFi summer, and we had to push this cost over to users, and at kind of the height of the gas market, it cost over $250 just to sign up for Authereum. And we wanted to target new users, and it was just way too expensive for the users we were targeting. And that's kind of where Hop came from, is we were looking for how to get our users onto layer 2 and allow them to stay on layer 2 and just be these layer 2 native citizens. And so we are looking for solutions to kind of move assets from one layer 2 to the next. Then we put out Hop as kind of an independent project just to see if it would get traction. And then, the response was overwhelming. We ended up pivoting our entire focus on Hop and kind of sunsetted Authereum. And that's kind of how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the relation, but it's almost like completely different businesses, right? Going from wallet to a bridge.
It definitely is, yeah.
So is it the exact same team, or did you guys kind of like go your different ways?
Yeah, no, it's the exact same team behind Authereum.
Okay. It's very interesting because I think Argent is another wallet, and they've moved completely to I think Stockware layer 2. So it does make sense, and a lot of users, I'm sure even people here have reduced their transactions on Ethereum and done a lot more on other chains. Probably all with the same rationale.
Argent, so Argent was a big competitor when we were working on Authereum, and I actually love Argent. They were tough competition at the time, but they were kind of facing a lot of the same problems, and they were covering the cost of this account deployment, and just like they were much better funded than us, but the amount of money that they were paying just to deploy users' accounts as they were signing up was like mind bending. I think at one point it was like $500,000 or more every month that they were paying just for gas fees for users signing up just to deploy the contract account.
Wow. Okay, didn't know that. Okay, then moving on to some questions from the chat. Atmos asked earlier, which layer 2 has gotten the most usage via Hop protocol so far? And I guess it's also the not exactly layer 2 chains as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Arbitrum is probably the top. Polygon is likely a close second. But yeah, the optimistic rollups are still very new. I think Optimism's taking a little bit of a more incremental approach than Arbitrum, but we expect usage to pick up there. But all three of those networks get decent usage. Arbitrum is definitely the biggest though.
Okay, and I kind of related, so I'll ask it now, and feel free to not answer if you choose not to. Ernwin asked, what's your personal layer 2 favorite right now and why?
That's a good question. I really like the user experience of both Optimism and Arbitrum. Like going from layer 1 where you kind of have this uncertainty when you like send a transaction, like, is it going to be mined? Did I set my gas price too high or too low? It's really nice to just be able to transact and your transactions are confirmed instantly. And so like I think that's a really underrated user experience for both of the optimistic rollups. Polygon's really nice too because it's just super cheap. But especially yesterday, I don't know if you guys tried to use Polygon yesterday, but gas prices were over 1,000 gwei. It's pretty crazy, and yeah, just that uncertainty that comes from dealing with gas markets, not having to do that on optimistic rollups is really nice.
Okay. And Atmos asked again another I think related question is like for your team, how would you approach expanding to more than 5 tokens? Like you have I think USDC, USDT, ETH, Matic, and maybe one more. But how do you kind of think about what tokens to add, and how much work, I guess, does it take to add one new token? to the protocol?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for each new token that we add right now, we deploy a new bridge contract on every chain, and then we kind of link them all up with these messengers. So it is a pretty involved effort, right? Like right now, it takes our team, probably half a day to deploy a new asset. And then it costs a few $1,000s with the layer 1 gas fees. And so in terms of like assets we support, we see like volume as our key metric. So we want to drive as much volume through Hop as we possibly can. And so we look at kind of the top assets in terms of TVL for each of the rollups. And so right now that's ETH, the 3 stables, USDC, USDT, and DAI. WBTC is up there, and we should be adding WBTC very soon. And then Matic is an important one because that's what you need to pay for the gas fees on Polygon. So that was like a very early asset that we supported as well. And then in terms of expanding that set, so we do want to kind of like keep going down the line to longer tail assets. Link is definitely a big one because the oracles on each of the rollups, they need Link to do their job, and so they actually have a big use case to send Link across these different scaling solutions. So that will probably be one that comes in the near term. And then in terms of like supporting the really long tail, this is definitely an open question for us. In a future version of Hop, we'd like to make it easier to spin up new tokens permissionlessly. And so we don't want to really be the gatekeepers for like which tokens are added or not added. And then, but there are some like capital requirements, so the AMMs need to be funded, so that it needs to be a fairly liquid token for it to make sense for someone to deploy a bridge set for it. And so what we think for the even longer tail assets is that we can add swaps in the source and the destination. So we're already swapping from the canonical token to the H token, and we could add another step where they could swap from some long tail asset, say SHIB. So they swap SHIB to ETH, and then to HETH, that gets bridged, and then they can swap out at the destination and have SHIB at the destination. So yeah, that's kind of how we see longer tail assets being bridged.
So to be clear, are you like integrating with the smart contracts of the AMMs on each chain, like Uniswap and QuickSwap and so on? Like, is that how it works?
Yeah, so for the for our AMMs, the canonical asset to the H asset, we deploy our own AMM, and so this is a stable swap AMM. It's very similar to Curve's contracts. It's Saddle's contracts, and they basically re-implemented Curve in Solidity. And so we use those, but for these kind of like additional swaps, we can hook into any of the native dexes to tap into their liquidity.
Okay, and so before you deploy any new token, then do you kind of like engage with any, let's say, market makers or liquidity providers on like which tokens that they would be willing to provide liquidity for?
Sometimes depends on the asset, but for the most part, we've just kind of deployed the assets, and people have filled up the AMMs. We do need to kind of like recruit a bonder to provide that liquidity, and so right now all the bonders are kind of close partners of us that we've engaged with, but we're working on kind of decentralizing this role more and opening it up to more parties.
Okay, I guess that links nicely with Alex's question on just wondering how many bonders there will be. Maybe you can also expand like at different stages how you approach answering that question.
Yeah, so right now we just have a single bonder per an asset, and so this was kind of this constraint that was unsolved until like maybe a month or two ago, maybe a month ago. So we figured out how to support multiple bonders for a single asset in the near term, and so this will kind of allow up to 20 different bonders per an asset. So we should be able to scale up the bonder liquidity a lot and scale up the number of bonders that we have a lot. But yeah, right now we just have 5 bonders, one for each of the assets.
Okay. And I think going back to expanding hop protocol sort of services, other than tokens, how do you think about, or how do you approach expanding to other chains, whether that be ZK rollups or side chains like layer ones, or even there are, I think the other day in the group, there's quite a lot of interest in Metis, which is another new optimistic rollup. So like, how do you approach which chains you want to create bridges for?
Yeah, so Hop is great for supporting Ethereum layer 2s and then like side chains that have the same kind of infrastructure that layer 2s have. So like Polygon and XDAI, they both have these messaging bridges. They both primarily use assets from Ethereum. And so basically Hop relies on these message bridges to support like a given layer 2 or sidechain. So, if they do have a message bridge and they're EVM compatible, it's pretty easy to deploy Hop. We've been keeping a close eye on Metis. We will likely support it at some point, but are just kind of looking and watching to see if it gains more traction. But yeah, would love to hear you guys' take on Metis too. But yeah, and then in terms of like other layer ones, this is a kind of different problem set than what Hop's built for right now. So we do want to kind of expand to these bridging, disjointed layer ones and allowing Ethereum to Ethereum assets to be used on things like Solana and Avalanche and Binance Smart Chain and all these chains where transactions are much cheaper. But we need to introduce some new technology to do this. So it's something we're definitely thinking about and we'll do in the future, but that's probably farther down the line.
So I understand Solana because it's not EVM, but for example, like the Avalanche and BSC chains, since they are EVM, is there something else that you need to have before you can integrate?
Yeah, for those, we need just the message bridge between Ethereum and Avalanche and Binance Smart Chain. So right now, there's not a way for the smart contracts to interact with each other.
Okay, and that's something that you build yourselves, or you need another member of that ecosystem to build and you can leverage?
Yeah, typically it's built by whatever layer 1 or whatever the side chain or the rollups. With the rollups, the message bridge is just built right into the rollup, and then the side chains like Polygon and XDAI have kind of deployed their own message bridge that they use.
Okay. Let's see. Jun Lee asks, could you explain further about challenging transactions? What sort of situation would call for a challenge on a transaction, and why have this feature?
Yeah, so this gets a little deeper than we went today, but so not only is this liquidity provider, the bonder, bonding individual transfers, but they also will bond the entire, what we call the transfer route, which is this like bundle of transfers that gets passed through layer 1 and is involved in the settlement process. And so when a transfer route is coming out of an optimistic rollup, that message will take 7 days to reach layer 1. And for, this makes sense for rollups because they're securing a ton of money. They don't necessarily need this fast, super fast exits if there are fast exit bridges like Hop. But for a bridge liquidity provider, having a shorter challenge period is really important, because by just having a day-long challenge period instead of 7 days, they're now 7 times more capital efficient. They can use that collateral 7 times more than if it took the full 7-day exit time. And so what we do is we shrink this challenge window from 7 days to 1 day using our own challenge mechanism. And this challenge mechanism is super simple. It basically just piggybacks on the optimistic rollups challenge mechanism. So the bonder will come in, bond the transfer route, put up collateral, and then that starts the 24-hour period. And then if the 24-hour, if a challenge happens within that 24-hour period, then we just wait for the actual message to reach layer 1 in 7 days, and then that will resolve the challenge either successfully or unsuccessfully. So that's how the challenge mechanism in Hop works.
Right. I think going off of that as well, like this is just one element for one type of rollup, which is optimistic rollup. And then, for example, ZK rollup is making leaps and bounds. How much do you have to do to keep up with these advancements in ZK rollups, optimistic rollups, or even just like, let's say, other things like this modular blockchain stuff and data availability? Like, how much of that do you need to keep up with to make sure that a whole protocol can still, provide its services?
Yeah, that's another good question. So supporting, the EVM compatible layer 2s is really easy. We basically, the only work is to kind of connect up to the cross-domain messengers. And then for non-EVM rollups, it is definitely something that is more work to keep up with. So if we support Starkware, we'll have to re-implement the layer 2 contracts in Cairo, their proprietary language. I know ZK Sync though is going to launch fully EVM compatible ZK rollups, so that that will be really easy for us to support. But even with it being fully EVM compatible, there's still like certain opcodes and stuff that are more expensive or aren't implemented yet. So we do have to kind of like keep an eye on that stuff. So yeah, if it's EVM compatible, it's super straightforward. And then if it's not, there definitely is some legwork to rework the smart contracts and get things re-audited and then deploy on those chains.
Right. And for now, at least, as far as I understand, both Optimism and Arbitrum, they're not necessarily decentralized yet. There's still a centralized sequencer that's sort of doing that job. So does that change how Hop Protocol works when they eventually decentralize sequencing? Such as like, would you run your own sequencer, or would it not matter if you do?
So we won't run our own sequencer, but we will run like our own like full verifier node. And so basically, the bonder is kind of this off-chain process, and so that's the one that's like listening for events and then acting on those events. And so the bonder needs to wait for finality of the source chain. And so right now we just kind of trust the sequencer, or I should say the bonder trusts the sequencer. The users don't. It's still completely trustless. And it's, the reason it trusts the sequencer is because these optimistic rollups are still pretty centralized. Their fraud proofs aren't implemented yet. And so once the sequencer kind of says this is the next transaction, we just trust it. And then when we move to like a multi-sequencer world, then what we'll do is, we need to wait for finality on the rollup. And so what finality on the rollup looks like is the sequencer will submit this transaction data onto layer 1 as it is being sequenced. And so the bonder will actually wait for the layer 1 transaction to be mined and then reach a certain number of confirmations to know that it can't be reorged out. And then we can say, okay, now this layer 2 transaction is final. And then the full verifier node can kind of like run the sequenced transactions to verify that the state is the state that we expect. And then that way it can then complete the bridge transaction at the destination, knowing that with complete certainty that the optimistic rollup state is what the sequencer says it is.
Okay. Going another direction. So for the users who might not be familiar, including myself, like how would revenue work for a bridging protocol, or how would you make sure you sustain yourselves? Like, would it be charging fees on top of the liquidity, or are there other novel ways for making money?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely still an open question for us. Right now there is no fee involved with Hop. In the future, that there definitely could be some portion of the bonder fee that goes towards protocol development, or fees could also be captured through the AMMs.
Okay. And then I'm sure you must have be very familiar with some of these sort of privacy networks. There's, I think, Aztec protocol. So what does Hop have some sort of position on supporting maybe privacy chains, or even somehow adding some kind of privacy or mixing element to the bridge?
Yeah, that's another good question. We spoke with the Aztec team. We would love to support these solutions at some point. Right now, the functionality on them is pretty limited to just kind of transfers, maybe swaps. And this makes it difficult for us to kind of deploy our layer 2 functionality and support those chains. And then, so actually it's a common question for us is like, could you do like private bridging or like kind of Tornado Cash mixed with the bridge? And so it seems like it would make sense, but privacy ends up getting pretty complicated. And so in order to have true privacy, you basically have to build up what's known as like an anonymity set. And so this is like a bunch of other addresses that look like your address with a given interaction. So the way Tornado Cash does this is they have you kind of deposit, and you deposit a very specific amount, like 0.1 ETH, 1 ETH, 10 ETH, 100 ETH. And then that way, and then you wait for some time. And so the reason you wait for this time is so that other people are depositing and adding to the anonymity set, so that you can be more anonymous when you withdraw. And so for a bridge to also have privacy, it would have to kind of have similar mechanics where the time period between when you enter the bridge and exit the bridge is some long period. And then the amounts that you're sending are very specific amounts. And so what it ends up boiling down to is it would be better just to, bridge without the anonymity built in, but then automatically deposit into, or maybe not automatically, but just have the user deposit into the mixer at the destination. And then that way they can, then wait for the, anonymity set to build up in kind of like a less fractionalized way that a bridge would do.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too, and because it kind of is a different target audience as well. Like people who want to use fast bridges, they want to get fast transactions. But as you say, like if you want privacy, you kind of naturally have to wait for that mixing to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Uji asks, what separates Hop with Synapse? I never remember how to pronounce the name, and maybe more generally also just with other bridge protocols out there.
Yeah, so that's another good question. So there's a few different kinds of bridges. Hop is actually pretty unique. We're the only bridge that uses this this kind of like tech that we came up with to like bundle these messages and then pass the bundle through layer 1. But this tech allows Hop to be completely trustless for layer 2 to layer 2 bridging. And so the Synapse, you know, it ends up looking similarly to Hop, and you know, the big difference is that instead of actually passing these messages through layer one and then like relying on the security of Ethereum, what they do is they introduce a new validator set. So they basically have a few addresses that are able to you know, propagate the messages directly from one solution to the next. But what happens is that the trust model devolves down to, you know, trusting this new validator set rather than having the security of Ethereum itself. And so that's the main difference between us and Synapse, and also chains, you know, other bridges like Thorchain, or anything else that, yeah, you know, actually now Stellar also operates using kind of its own validator set with the Stellar 2.0 contracts. And then there's this other type of bridge that uses hash time locks. And so hash time locks is this game where you kind of like have this like four-step process where you kind of deposit on one side and then you lock up tokens on the other side, and then the one user withdraws and reveals a secret, and then that the other user can use that secret to withdraw at the destination. And this gets complicated. Like it works well when in kind of the happy path, but in kind of the non-happy path, there's like all kinds of like griefing vectors that you could do. That it requires two transactions from the user, or at least you know, a transaction and a signature. And so, you know, we looked at this construction early on when we were kind of attacking this problem with Authereum, but ultimately decided to not go with the hash time lock approach.
Okay. And with all these bridges coming up and being around, you have all kinds of this sort of synthetic tokens, if I can call them that. Like, you know, there's the HETH, there's CETH, there's all these other types of tokens out there. I think, for example, AnySwap has a bunch of different tokens across each chain. Like, have you guys had any kind of conversations with amongst yourselves or with debt projects on like the kind of convoluted world you would have where there's like all kinds of different tokens out there, and for the end user they might not know which is the more native, which is the native one, and which is which of these tokens have the different trust assumptions baked in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a big reason why we kind of have these AMMs to swap in and out of, you know, the H tokens. And so we really don't want you know, we don't see the H tokens being the ones that are kind of adopted as like, you know, the true ETH or the true USDC. And so like, you know, users won't you know, use H tokens in things like Aave or you know, or just like hold it on, you know, as a balance. So that kind of like isolates it, and you know, and then we abstract it away from the user so they don't really need to think about it, so they can just think about the canonical assets. And so this works well, but for Ethereum layer 2s, but when you kind of get to layer 1 to layer 1, layer 1 to layer 1 bridging, that's when you kind of get this problem where it's like, okay, you have assets from this chain, assets from this chain, and you like bridging them to another chain, and so now so like you kind of have this like trail of bridged assets. I know Stellar is working on a standard to kind of allow multiple bridges to share a single token. We haven't looked too deeply in that because we don't actually deal with the canonical assets with Hop right now, but it does seem like a possible solution to reining in the like you know, tons of different representations of the same token.
Yeah, I honestly, one of the sort of things I'm concerned about coming into 2022 is this explosion of different tokens all over the place, and it gets impossible to track you know, which bridged token is which one.
Yeah.
Although one of the definite benefits of having more chains and more L2 chains is you know, actually getting cheap transactions possible again. So So with that in mind, and you mentioned you were working on, or you had a lot of ideas on building like all kinds of applications on Ethereum before this. Do you, just as a kind of personal view, do you see any kind of applications you think will come up a lot in 2022, especially on layer twos where things will be relatively cheaper?
That's a good question. I think we'll see like DeFi continue to develop, and we're seeing kind of like more and more niche DeFi projects. Like I feel like 2020 and 2021 was kind of like the base layer of like exchanges and lending and stuff, and now we're seeing like volatility indexes and options and option strategies and stuff like that. So yeah, and there's a lot of use cases where you need cheap transactions for it to make sense, like perpetual swap exchanges and stuff like that. So I think layer 2 will definitely open up these kind of use cases that need cheaper environments, and then yeah, we'll see like kind of like cross-chain applications, which should be interesting. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out in 2022. Should be a good year.
I think that's a good kind of next question would be asked by Asfar. Where do you go, or who do you follow to keep track of all these different layer 2 developments that are happening?
Oh, that's a good question as well. Mostly Twitter and Discord. So like I'm, if there's a new layer 2, I'll jump in the Discord. You guys can also jump in our Discord. We talk about a lot of the different layer 2s a lot. And then on Twitter, just following the different projects, following a lot of Ethereum people and different crypto people. Yeah, it's a lot to keep up with though.
Yeah, I mean, that's just layer 2, right? There's a lot of other stuff happening all over the place as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because Asfa asked that last question, I do remember, Asfa, you asked a question very early on. So for Chris, what's your thought on protocols that are specialized for cross-chain transfers, such as NXTP?
Yeah, so actually that ties into the like different bridge question. And so NXTP is a hash time lock based protocol. And so yeah, it's good for kind of bridging layer 1s to layer 1s because you can do it in a trustless way. But I think for layer 2 to layer 2, the solution that we have, it allows it to be completely trustless without having the complexity of the multi-step process.
Okay, and I think we're gonna be ending soon, so maybe just one or two more questions. I think some members of the community are not gonna be happy with me if I don't ask the when token question. But Caleb, who's not here today, but he crafted a very nice one, so we can ask it in a more in a better way. So the question is, as you're possibly much more aware than all of us here, liquidity in this space is often fragmented, and the lack of concentrated liquidity results in worse rates for users. So would Hop Protocol be releasing any incentive mechanism to align this?
Yeah, so right now, we partner with a few of the layer 2s. So like Matic, on Matic, we have Matic rewards for liquidity there. And then on XDAI, that they're going to provide some GNO to incentivize liquidity there. It's definitely top of mind for us. We've also been talking to teams like Maker and for DAI and some of the other stable coins about providing liquidity. So yeah, so it definitely is a tough problem to attract liquidity, and something that's top of mind for us.
And I guess related to that would be, I don't think Hop is a DAO, right?
It's not.
Are there any plans to make it more of a DAO?
It's possible. It's I think it's something that every project is considering right now. But yeah, like right now we're still very early, very young, and the protocol is moving and changing pretty fast. So it's something that's in the back of our minds. But yeah, we'll see what direction we end up going.
Okay, so where do you think Hop will be in this time in 2023, or what do you wish to see? Where do you wish to see Hop will be, and layer 2s in general?
Yeah, so I hope to see that we see like more usage, like actual users on layer 2 than we do on layer 1. I hope we see exchanges allow for deposits and withdrawals directly to layer 2, so that we basically see users that never have to touch layer 1 at all, and never do touch layer 1. And so like I hope we get that there this year. I think that would be kind of a nice future. And for Hop, I hope that we kind of have our next version out, and so this version will allow for not just asset transfers, but also for like messages to go directly from one rollup to the next in a scalable way. And then yeah, I hope we have a pretty clear path to kind of supporting disjointed layer 1s as well, so we can kind of expand our reach beyond just the Ethereum layer 2 ecosystem that we're focused on right now.
Okay, and I guess before we end, any final words for any community members here on what we can do to help support your project?
Yeah, definitely just like community support is really important to us. So participating on Twitter and then jumping in the Discord. We're always, there's always people like asking questions and looking for help and stuff. So the community is invaluable because they are always kind of jumping in and helping people and making memes and just like chatting and stuff. So if you guys join the Discord, start talking, and yeah, that'd be a huge help.
All right, thanks. Thanks a lot, Chris. I think we'll get the Twitter and Discord links for Hop and share it in the groups later. But yeah, otherwise, thanks a lot for spending your time with us. I can see the background has changed from pitch black to a little bit more color.
Yeah.
And yeah, so have a good day, and for everyone else here, have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me.